welcome back to Unapologetically You, where we discuss all things health and wellness. We use science-backed tools that can support you and your family and hopefully prod some thought-provoking conversations to get you motivated and look after yourself and the ones you love. So today's special guests, we have Sian and Becky. They are both here to give us an insight into their wellness strategies, being entrepreneurs in the wellness industry themselves. So Sian is a nonfiction book editor and a proofreader for women authors and business owners. She specializes in women's health, and she's also the editor of my book, Happiness Within. So we also have our guest, Becky, who owns the company Ravencrest Books, and she is within the health and wellness publishing, specializing in publishing, of course. And she's also an expert in formatting, cover design, and marketing strategies for authors. She is also somebody who collaborated on my book, Happiness Within, and allowed me to go through the KDP self-publishing route. So it was a lot smoother when I had her help. But Ravencrest Books has also got their own podcast. And I was fortunate to be a part of their first podcast called The Right Space. And the link is in the show notes. So please feel free to check that out. So the reasons we have invited these incredible women on here is because they are more than entrepreneurs and lovers of all things books. We delve deeper into what they do, why they do it, and how they prioritize their wellness being business owners. But before we get into that, support what we're doing. Head over to the Patreon page, support us for a small price of a cup of coffee. And we'd appreciate if you share this podcast if you enjoyed it. But without further ado, you know her, you've seen her already, my wonderful and beautiful, incredible co-host, Kelly. Hi, Cal.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very well. All the better for seeing you. I really understand what that means now, especially when it comes to us.
Yeah, look, I'm more upbeat just from hearing your intro there. It was beautiful.
Oh, bless you. Even though I kind of got thrown off track.
You
Hopefully
did a
it
little
was a
bit.
little bit.
Nah, it was all good. You
Amazing.
always do a
Thank you
good
so
intro.
much. Well, listen, Cal, I haven't seen you in a
hmm
while, and you missed the
hmm
podcast that I was talking to Jackie, which was
Yes.
amazing. I cannot wait for you to catch up on that one. But
Okay.
we
All
are here
right.
now. We're staying present.
Yeah.
We're not worried about the past or the future. What is your
hmm
biggest win? What was the biggest win that you had in this week so far?
I got a lady. I've been working with a lady who hasn't walked. Not that she couldn't walk, but she hadn't, and then had sort of lost the ability to do so. For many years, many years. And she's up and walking and getting out and about, and it's changed her life. So that makes me, yeah, that's my biggest win.
That's a
It's a beautiful one.
huge win.
It is.
Like,
It is. It's
props to
changed her
you,
life.
props to her. Like,
Props to her. The work that she put in. She had to change her mindset as well. So that's a big thing to overcome for so many people. And just to give her the confidence that she could do this, right?
yeah, of
So yeah,
course. Like, my
that's my
cousin
biggest.
recommended the 6 pillars of self-esteem. And when he recommended
hmm
it, he was like, it's life-changing. And every book is very specific, which is really convenient that we're going to talk about books with our guest today. But every book is very specific to that person, whichever journey, whichever path they're on, right? And so when he recommended
hmm
it to me, I'm like, 6 pillars of self-esteem. I'm pretty like good with my self-esteem and my self-confidence. Like I'm okay
With
now.
you.
I'm okay now. But then I ordered the book because obviously he said it was highly recommended.
Yes, and we both do trust his judgment hugely.
Well, no, this is my other cousin. He came back
Different. Oh,
from
you've
New
got two cousins.
Zealand. Yeah, I
Yes.
really kept in touch with him. He came back
Okay.
from New Zealand because he was living in New Zealand for about 2 or 3 years,
hmm
maybe even longer. And then he had gone to India recently and started delving deeper into the yogic way of life, started, his teacher training. So he's
Okay.
gone
Yes.
from a person who looks after agriculture. It was a tree cutter. I don't know the specific term of what that actually is, the professional like
Okay.
label, but now he's gone into
hmm
yoga. And so he was talking about this book that actually made a profound impact on him. And there's me going, I don't really need to learn about self-esteem. And I started the book and I was like, okay, well, maybe I can learn it in perspective of how other people need to raise up their self-esteem. Because as a coach, who are we dealing with? People. And
Yes.
when you speak about your person, this beautiful, wonderful, incredible person who has overcome certain fears, certain issues regarding self-esteem. And this book says everything is underlined with self-esteem. Like if we
Right.
don't think we're
Of
good
course.
enough, or we're not going to
Yep.
approach those relationships, we're not going to push ourselves with a business or whatever we're doing. And I just found that really profound, because it just goes to show how much we hold ourselves back generally, because we
Yes.
don't have
Gosh.
that level of self-esteem.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. We are our own worst enemies. And how many times have you heard that? But the truth
So
of it is,
many.
yeah, we're,
Yeah, agree.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
okay, so
hmm
what made you smile? It can't be the
What made
same
me
thing.
smile? My friend Linda arrived today. She's staying
Oh,
in a caravan just out the side there. And she's staying up here for 2 weeks. So it's going to be lovely to see Linda. And my brother arrives tomorrow, or perhaps the next day. He's not sure. He's just going to arrive when he arrives. So I get two people to play with for the next week. I
I
know,
love
it's so
that
exciting.
phrase. I love that you just said, I get to play with these people, which is
I know.
exactly what we should be doing. As
It
adults,
is.
we don't laugh
Yes.
enough, we don't play enough, we don't enjoy ourselves enough,
No, that's right. There's a
right?
lot of, yeah, there's a lot of, we call it work, I guess, but there's just a lot of stuff to get done, isn't there,
Yeah.
as adults? But we should really make time to play. I actually bought some paddles and a ball that skims on the water. So we're going to go down to the beach and play beach tennis,
I
I
love
guess.
it.
Yeah, I know. So I'm
I love
excited about
it.
that. I bought all these beach toys.
I love it. Okay, so your intention this coming week, is that to just invite more play and joy and happiness into your world, or is this something else?
No, that's exactly it. I really do need to take a rest the next few days.
Good,
Christmas party tomorrow night after that.
good. I
After the
love
Christmas party.
that. I love that. So after that, welcome. And now we're into that hot topic of the day with our beautiful guests, Sian and Becky. So Sian, I'm going to pick on you first. You edited my first book, Happiness Within, because I know there was a synergy and the dynamic that we worked well with the story that I was telling. But does your approach in editing differ when you're working with other authors, like especially with their own particular writing style? I know I had a bit of a difficulty when people wanted to rewrite my story, whereas you just gelled really well with my writing style. And so there's kind of like a two-part question. Does your editing process differ with different authors? And then how do you balance preserving that author's voice when correcting errors?
So the simple answer to that first, that's a sign of a good editor. We're not robots, we're not Grammarly, like we adapt to everyone's writing style. It's a bit like your strength programs. So I love to use analogies. So you might have someone who they haven't got great core strength. So you're still going to work on that core strength, but you're going to modify it for them. And it's the same when it comes to authors. And the key to that is getting to know them as well as you can before you edit a single word. And that's why I love working with independent or self-publishing authors, because you can have that one-to-one, and we have a discovery call before we chat to each other. I find out more about your personal background, your publishing background. I try to get to know them through their social media. So I know that when I was editing your book, I think I said we should call one of your chapters after the podcast, because I knew what your podcast was about. So that's the answer to the first question. And regarding the second one, it's about communicating errors that need to be changed because you spelt a word wrong, or the word you've chosen kind of changes the meaning of the sentence, versus advising or suggesting ways that you can improve the writing. And I do that by using comments when I'm editing, and I'll say things like, what do you think about this wording? And I make it really clear that it's a suggestion, And sometimes authors will go along with it, and sometimes they might reply being like, that doesn't really sound like me, but I get the point you're trying to make. And then it's up to them to make changes that they feel comfortable with. So I hope that answers your question.
It does. Thank you so much.
Yeah, interesting. I've always thought editing was an interesting job, and that, please excuse me, that anyone could do it, you know. But it doesn't sound like it. It sounds like there's a lot of you'd have to know the English language very well.
Yeah,
right?
and it's also because I edit non-fiction in the health and wellness space. I don't edit I edit non-fiction. I don't edit fiction because I enjoy reading fiction, but I don't know how to edit fiction. But I somehow just non-fiction, that's just my skill. I have a knack of doing it. So yeah, like you say, just because you read a lot doesn't mean you can edit. So it is just one of those, it's kind of a thing it's one of your innate things that you're maybe born with, but you do also have to really hone the skill and learn more about how to do it. And it's one of those professions, again, a bit like with you, Tulsi, you're always learning and you can't rest on your laurels, and it's always keeping up to speed with everything.
I was going to say, if I can jump in, did you have any kind of like training to, like you say, you were born with the kind of ability to do it, but like, did you train up in it or do any courses? How did you like go from enjoying doing it to making it like your full-time thing?
So it was something that I've always wanted to do since being a teenager, and I kind of just assumed you'd have to work for one of the big 5 publishing houses. But I graduated during the recession, so jobs were few and far between. But I found a job where they were looking for someone to proofread a book that they were self-publishing in their company. And I stayed with that company for 15 years, always proofreading, always copy editing. So I didn't have any professional training, but I was always doing it in some way, shape or form. And then last February, when I decided I wanted to work with more women authors, and I'd had a lot of experience with my own mental health, and I'd become a mental health first aider, and all that kind of came together. And I was like, right, it's women, it's mental health, that's what I want to focus on now. And then I did proofreading qualifications, and then through that I became a member of a chartered institute for editing and proofreading. And then through that you can do self-paced courses, but it's also just being within that community and kind of learning from them, and a lot of it's going with your gut and then asking for help when it's something more technical.
Yeah, more than I thought was necessary. But if anyone wrote a book, could they submit it to you?
So my process starts, if they've written a book, then yes, I can start and I can help them. If they're in the process of writing the book and they are struggling with either the content of the middle or how to end it, that's more in the freelance publishing world. That's what's known as a writing coach or a writing mentor. So you normally have people that are in the bubble of being a writing coach and a writing mentor, and they will help you get to the finish line of that first draft. Once that first draft's been done, that's when I can step in, and I offer there's a few different services. So I do one where I read the whole book, and then I'll feed back on things like structure, chapters that I think are irrelevant, chapters that I think we can add. And after that, you do a line by line edit, which is like probably the traditional, I'd say the traditional perception of what people think an editor does when they're, taking out commas and, adding in correct use of grammar, that kind of thing. And then after that, you would normally have it proofread. So that's kind of what I come in, is when you've got that first draft and you don't know if it's good enough to be published yet. And I can take you through the next steps after that.
Okay. Well, Tulsi's written a book. Becky, have you written a book?
No, I have started many times to write a book. I've never quite got to the finish line of those books. And I always feel like I'm one of those cliche people who has got a book in them. But I've never got to the finish line of writing a book. So I've started writing. I used to be in the army, so I have started to write a book about those days.
Mhm.
I started to write a book about twin mum life because I'm a mum of twins, and I feel
Oh.
like there's lots of kind of different parts of my life
Mhm.
that I feel like they could be in a book, but I don't know if it's a lack in self-confidence and kind of imposter syndrome that makes me think, would anyone want to read about that? I don't know. And it's funny because it's the same kind of thing that I say to our clients. I'm the one reassuring them that yes, someone wants to read your book, but I can't take that advice myself.
I think a lot of mums would like to read about twin mum life because it's going to be two ends of the scale, hilarious and all good, and the chaos and the hectic and sleeplessness. But it's fun to read about that. So I think you should write that book. I would read it. But I think everyone should write a book. And I'm saying that as someone who hasn't written a book, but does feel like there's one in there. But now I know how to possibly get it published. So should everyone write a book, Sian?
Oh, wow. No one's ever asked me that question before. Should you write a book? Because I haven't written a book, but I really enjoy writing. And I think, to be honest, if you don't enjoy writing, maybe writing a book isn't the way for you to get your story out there. I do feel like there's so many ways that you can communicate what you've been through. Podcast, video blogging. I think that's the beauty of the world that we live in today. It's not just the written word. So I think you do have to enjoy the process of writing, whether it's pen to paper journaling, whether it's, some people really look forward to that monthly blog that they do for their business or their personal blog. So I think if you enjoy that and you can build on that, then yes, you should write a book. But yeah, it's maybe a bit of a harsh response, but yeah, why write a book if you don't enjoy writing? But also, conversely, give writing a try. Just because you didn't enjoy writing as a kid doesn't mean you won't enjoy it now, because you're in control of what you're writing about, and you haven't got to worry about what a teacher's going to think about what you're writing. You can just write and let it out and put it on paper. So maybe also just give it a go, but start small. Start with the journaling, the blogging. Don't think, oh my goodness, how do I write a book? Find your writing style by writing smaller chunks that suit you, is what I would say.
All right, great feedback, because starting small is always the way to do everything. And it's also the way to do this. So you say journaling first. You don't have to know what all the chapters are. You don't have to know what the ending's going to be. All right. Okay.
Absolutely not.
Maybe I can do it.
Yeah, a lot of authors that I work with, I know that Tulsi, you journaled a lot and you have lots of diaries. And if you ever read any interviews with successful writers, most of them have spent most of their life either reading a lot or writing a lot. The love of words is in there in some sort of format.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, good advice. And Tols, you ready for book number 2 and 3? Yeah?
I so am. I literally have like 6,000 words I wrote in the last probably 3 days or something.
Nice.
And I'm like, I need to go through all my journals to put it into another book. And I'm like, Sian can deal with all of that.
I remember when you were doing your first book and you were talking about what your second and third books were going to be, and I was like, that's great. Can we finish this first one and then maybe do the second and third one? You were so excited to write more and more and more. It was brilliant.
Yeah, it is. And she's got a lot of stories left in her, I know for sure. All right, well, Becky, turn to you. So, are you noticing trends in the book publishing industry? Because, years ago there was this buzz about Kindle being launched and sales will impact the publishing companies, but that didn't really seem to happen from my perspective.
No, I mean, to be honest, the impact that like Kindle had, I mean, Kindle and self-publishing and KDP and stuff had that rise in the late 90s. And to be honest, there was no real like impact on publishing houses, because there's so many people who really like glorify traditional publishing houses that I don't think they're ever going to suffer, to be honest. People when they try to get their book published traditionally will need to submit like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of queries and submit their manuscript hundreds of times unless they get really lucky on like submission number 2. So just by those kind of figures, And I think there's that classic tale of J.K. Rowling, who had to submit her manuscript like 500 times or something before she got it accepted. So obviously that was a while ago, but it's still the case. People really, really like hold the traditional publishing space as like the holy grail of publishing. Even though there's different routes to take now, there's people really still want that kind of accolade of being traditionally published. So no, I don't think there wasn't any kind of effect on the publishing houses, because they just have people queuing up at the doors to kind of get in. But what I have noticed, kind of speaking and connecting to people in different parts of the world, is that people actually, I think, and maybe you can tell me this is right or not, but in Australia and America, it seems like writers are much more open to the idea of self-publishing and hybrid publishing, whereas I often find in the UK that traditional publishing, like I said, is still the holy grail, and hybrid and self-publishing is often kind of not mocked, but like, cast aside a little bit, like, oh, you're self-published, whatever. But it's slowly growing. Like, self-publishing is slowly becoming such a big thing, and people are getting recognized for the process that they go through as self-published authors as well.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a few people in our industry who've written a book and self-published, so there doesn't seem to be a stigma around self-publishing here, but I can only speak for the few that I know. So I have friends who've written books on being a sporting parent, a cookbook, Happiness Within, and maybe 2 or 3 others, but yeah, all self-published. And because I now know that self-publishing exists, I'll always pass them on to someone who can do it. So sometimes it's a wake up for people that it can happen, but there's no stigma around doing it.
Yeah, I've really noticed it. I've really noticed that people are kind of much more happy to part with money and kind of do like a mid-range venture into the hybrid world in like America and Australia. So it's funny how in England it's not quite caught up yet. And people are very much a little bit wary still of hybrid publishers, but it's coming around. And what I would say about the kind of trends that have happened is, obviously with COVID in like 2020, that is when the physical sales start to drop. So that's the only trend really that kind of happened. There's been a lot of closures of bookshops. Sian, I don't know if you've noticed, because I know that you love a physical book. There's been a lot of closures in bookshops, so that's the main trend that's really happened since Kindle became massive.
Yeah, I think there was certainly a period where there were quite a few bookshops closing, whether it was your local Waterstones or independents. But actually, in the last 18 months in my local town, there have been 2 independent bookshops that have opened up, and they're going down a real treat. But I think the difference is that both the owners are hosting more author events. One of them actually has a whole bookcase dedicated to independent authors. They have author events, workshop events. So I think it's utilizing the space beyond just being a place where you sell books, and it's becoming that place to experience, like I said, the love of word and interacting with people. So I think it's just like changing how people use bookshops. And I know we like the old tradition, that dream of owning your bookshop and it's got a cafe and it's all cozy, but that is what people have to do now, isn't it? To get them through the door is to get them to maybe buy a book, but also have a cup of coffee and make it a treat to go. So I think it's just changing the experience of when you go.
People love a cafe. So the cafe, people will be there.
Absolutely. Yeah, especially in Australia with their coffee habit, addiction might be a better word. But yeah, there's a few in Australia like that as well. I mean, there's the big ones, but they love the little cozy ones, and they have secondhand books there as well with the little turned over pages. Yeah, gorgeous.
Yeah, same here.
All right, Becky, what do you see as the biggest challenges authors have when self-publishing?
I think Tulsi's probably a good person to ask, actually, but I think honestly the biggest kind of challenge people come across is the marketing, because not taking anything away from the process, like the process is difficult and it's each step has got its own challenges, but there's a formula for it. Like, you write your book, You get it edited, you get it proofread, you get it formatted, you get a cover design made. Like, there's the formula. You go out and you do it. It's a very bare minimum. Like, you've got that to follow. But if you don't put any effort into the marketing of your book, then no one's going to know about it. It's that simple, really. However good your book is, if it's hidden away somewhere on the darkest shelf of Amazon and no one's shouting about it, then no one's gonna read it. And it's also really important to make sure that as a self-published author, you're building up your audience as you're writing it, before you've even finished it. You need to be making people chomp at the bit for when your book is being released, and being like, oh, I can't wait to read Happiness Within when it comes out. So that's what you need to be doing: building your audience, building your readership, building a solid community around you of people that are going to want to read your book. Basically, that's definitely what people struggle with, and I think also underestimate when it comes to book publishing.
I totally agree.
Definitely.
And I also think as well, if you get people involved, if you start letting people know you're writing a book and the process that's involved and the hard work that goes into it, you're going to get people more on side with the amount of work that's gone into it, the amount of research, your knowledge. You're trying to build yourself as an authority on that particular thing that you've written about. And I think if people understand that process more, like you said, Becky, like, you've written it, you've edited it, you've sent it off to the editor, you're working with an editor, you're thinking about the book cover. When you're self-publishing, you've got so many steps to go through before you even, like I said, before you even hit launch and before you even getting people to part with their money.
Yeah, I can really easily see why book marketing might be seen as a bit of an afterthought, because, like you said, there's so much to it in the production process. And then all of a sudden, launch day is like next week, and they're like, oh my God, I didn't do any pre-book marketing. I mean, it's not too late to market your book like once it's been published. There's plenty of things you can still do to drum up a reaction and an excitement about your book after it's launched. But the more you do pre-launch, the better it will do initially on launch day. So yeah.
Self-promotion is always hard, isn't it? Did you have to overcome a lot, Tols?
I'm still learning. Is all I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely. But you did a really good job of drumming up a crew that belonged to you and were excited and interested about the book.
And we're both believers of universal, alignment and energy. So it's almost like at the right time, I found Sian. At the right time, she knew Becky, suggested Becky. And I'm so privileged that I was able to work with these true incredible women who are talented, who are amazing at what they do. And for me, I'm just like, we need more people to know about this. So even at the podcast, that's what we were saying at the beginning, right, Kelly? It's just going, share this podcast with others. Like, let other people know how amazing these people that we're speaking to, what talents and expertise that they've got. Because if there is that book in you, if that is that passion, you're going to find the right people at the right moment.
For sure. And for both of you, do the authors have to be in the UK to use you girls? Use you both, your services? No, that's right. What about you, Sian?
So I predominantly work with UK publishers because there are different spellings and grammar conventions between UK, US, Australian and Canadian English. But I have just started working with more US authors because my editing colleagues were basically like, you can do it, it's fine, stick to your style guide, look things up, you'll be fine, you'll do it. And I have done I've done 2 US clients in the past 3 months and it's gone really well. So that's given me a bit of a confidence boost to maybe branch out a little bit more.
Yeah, good. But do the UK and Australia have different spelling or just different colloquialisms?
The honest answer is I don't know, because I've never looked into Australian English, but definitely the colloquialisms. And that was one of the main reasons why I was so hesitant to do anything beyond UK British, was just things like, so I live in Birmingham, which is as far as you can be from the coast in the UK. So someone was writing a book and they decided for some reason to reference Birmingham, and then they told me it took them half an hour to get to the sea. I'd be able to pull them up on that and just say, well, that's not accurate, that's not true. So it's more those kind of facts that I would worry that I would miss if I was editing a book that was based in Australian culture or Canadian culture. So that's more the worry, that I would miss something like that.
Okay, and that makes sense. But I do think UK and Australian spelling is the same. We are definitely not the same as the US. We're the same as UK. So you're fine there. You're halfway there.
Interesting. Cool.
Just get your
you.
geography right and you're done.
It's only a small place, Australia, right? Like,
Tiny.
Just learn
Tiny.
Australia.
Exactly.
Sean,
questions,
I
Tol?
actually wanted to jump on that when you were talking about, you know, different countries and different grammar and different language trends. I love your social media because you have diversity within your Instagram especially, but also you pick up on things like, oh, well, what's the right type of word to use? Is it bear or bear? Is it, you know, and those things. I love the fact that you pick these things up. Is there supposed to be a hyphen between ice cream? Why isn't it supposed to be? And all these different things. And so my question is do you actually dedicate time out of your schedule during your week to go, I'm going to look this up? Or do you take it as more inspirational? Like, do you dedicate time, or is it just a wing it?
It's probably like a halfway house. So most of the language posts that you'll see on my social media, I've come across either what I've read that week or I found it in a client's work a few months ago. So it's normally organic from that point of view. But when I'm writing that language post, I am on my Oxford English Premium Dictionary account, looking it up and double checking it. And I think that's the other not myth, but proofreaders and editors use dictionaries and look things up all the time. It is not all in our heads. We look it up, we double check. There'll just be something that goes off in your head and you're like, is that how you spell terrific? And sometimes it is how you spell it, and sometimes your alarm bell was right to look it up and you're like, no, it definitely wasn't spelled like that. But we're always looking things up. Like, you don't rely on just assuming that you know. Obviously not every single word. I know how to spell, you know, most words, but and there are everybody's got their own word that trips them up, and you've got to make sure you look it up every single time. So yeah, it's more kind of a cross between the two. I'm always looking things up because I have to, because of my job. But when it comes to the information that I want to share, it's normally come from either something that I've read or someone's asked me recently, or it's something that I've amended in a recent project. So I think, well, if this person needed a bit of information on that, surely other people will as well.
Can I just say that I find your grammar posts on social media so helpful, and I can't even tell you how many times I've Googled which version it is, bear or bear. Like, basically every day I'm Googling that. I've never ever remember. Like, what is your spelling, your word that you can never remember how to spell? Have you got one?
So if I'm writing it out without so as in like on a piece of paper, entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I think I always forget the R after the T.
There's a lot of E's and U's.
Yeah. But the other day, my 12-year-old, he's actually 12 today, he challenged me to spell anti-disestablishmentarianism on our whiteboard, and I got it right.
I can never ever spell alcohol. Never.
Of all things. Why?
All
What do you get wrong? Spell it now.
Oh my god. ALCH, and then I get mixed up. I always think AHOL. Sean?
Do you say ALCH?
Yeah, that's what she said. Yeah.
AHOL.
It's ALCOH.
I don't even know what that
Oh,
spells.
too many H's.
Oh, maybe I could think of a
Every
way
time.
to help you remember. Leave that with me.
Do you have a word, Tulsi, that you were tripped up by?
There are so many, so many. And I love that. I actually just did want to chip in with this. Sian, you raise a really good point. I'm not even an editor, but there'll be certain words I'll come across. I'm like, what is that meaning? Or the worst thing is, okay, you all have to tell me if you do this, because please tell me I'm not alone on this, is I'll use a word and then I'll say, where did that word come from? Because I've never used it in my life. But then I'll have to look it up and go, is this the right meaning? Oh, it is the right meaning. Okay, go ahead. So tell me, if has anybody done that they've got a little bit more too much information, then all of a sudden they're like, I've not used that word before, but I've obviously read it and heard it being used.
Yeah, 100%. It's like your brain is like one step ahead of you, and your brain is just like really on the ball with these amazing words that you didn't even know that you knew. And you're writing, and then it just comes onto the page, and you're like, whoa, what is that word? And then, yeah, you look it up, and you're like, no, I can't be right on this. And then, yeah, somehow subconsciously, your brain has like picked it up from the previous life or whatever. And yeah, you got that new word.
Because you read so
That's
much, Max,
amazing.
it just you read a lot. I know you both read a lot, so, and I imagine you, Kelly, are you a big reader as well, or?
Love reading.
Okay, so it will just absorb into your brain.
Oh,
I
that's a
don't
really good
use
point.
words out of nowhere though. I'm no Tulsi and Beck and Sian.
You don't use words out of nowhere? Did you just say that? That's interesting.
No.
I don't know if I do either, to be honest. I normally know.
Just me and you, Becky, basically.
I come across sometimes when I'm reading in bed, I don't have my phone next to me. If I'm reading in bed and I come across a word I don't know, my husband's my Google because he's got his phone and he'll be looking at words for me if it's one I've not come across before.
It
Love
must be
that part
like
of
some
it.
kind of superpower, Tulsi.
It really is, right? It's a 50-50 chance, basically. What we've got here is we're honing into that superpower. Okay, so even though we can talk endlessly about your careers and what you guys are doing, I wanted to ask more about your health. Sian, you mentioned about your mental wellness. Becky, you've been in the army. Surely there has some sort of balance that you need to find out through the experiences that you had and also the people that you're with. And this is a question for both you, Sian and Becky. It's, how do you currently find a balance between your wellness, the business demands, being entrepreneurs yourself, and then the changes and uncertainty about being a business owner? Because that's gonna crop up. And I know I drove myself insane being a business owner early on, but now I'm like embracing that level of uncertainty. And I myself had, issues with anxiety and depression and things like that. So I know I'm managing it in my way, but how do you both manage it? Sian, do you want to go first?
Yeah, so I think part of mine is that my threshold for stress and dealing with pressure is actually quite low. So I so far haven't ever reached burnout or anything like that, because for me the warning signs go off quite early on, and I physically and mentally, like, I've never been able to work well at night or in the evening. I've always liked a lot of sleep, so I've always needed a lot of sleep, so I've always prioritized that. But I've only been running my own business since last summer, so just coming up for 18 months old. And because I don't know if it's because I've launched it while my kids are still at school, so I've got very limited hours in which I can do what I want to do. So that kind of dictates the workload that I can take on and my capacity, and I've always kind of worked within that. But I've also, certainly in the last 10 years, become a lot more, like I said, a lot more intuitive as to what I need. And I think it helps that there's been so much more talk around women's health and hormones. So whether it's hormones or whether it's stress or whatever it is that's telling me I can't do my normal exercise routine today, but what I will say is that I never stop it. I might adapt it. So for example, if I had a 45-minute run planned and then I wake up in the morning, I was like, oh God, I've got that, I've really got to get that editing done today. But I know that I won't do a good job if I don't go for a run at all. So instead of a 45-minute run, I'll maybe go for a 20-minute run, and I'll still feel better to handle the day. So I've gotten a lot better at at having a loose plan that can be adapted and is flexible, but is never sort of like, it's still a priority that I do my exercise. For me, it's running is my main thing that I do. So I always just make sure that I do it in some way, shape or form, even if it's not as much as I maybe wanted to do originally. That's what I would say for me anyway.
I love that answer. And like prioritizing. I love that you're prioritizing that. And also your kids are seeing this too, right? They're seeing how you're doing that.
Yeah, and it goes in the diary. So like I said, because my kids are at school, so my husband and I share the school drop-offs and stuff. So for example, he does a school drop-off on a Monday, Thursday, Friday. So Monday, Thursday and Friday morning is when I can definitely go for a run, because I've got any time up until 9 o'clock and I like to start editing. I've got any time to do my exercise then, and it's literally in the diary. And so is my weekly Pilates class on Tuesday. They're in the diary, they're happening. He knows, the family know. Yeah. Because if my kids' stuff goes in the diary, why shouldn't mine?
Accountability too, right? You know that you're putting your deadlines and your client schedules on your diary, but you're carving that out for yourself, which is amazing. I used to do that a lot with meditation when I was first getting into it. And obviously it's different with a family. I'm only looking at my own schedule, but you know, I know that I would be like, right, this is my dedicated morning time. And this is when I start my first meeting. But what about you, Becky? What's your history around your wellness, and how do you manage it with two tiny human beings?
Three tiny human beings. There's three of them, 4 and under, which is insane. So I'm actually, interestingly, I trained as a sleep coach. So my kids actually sleep like an absolute dream. That gives me a lot of time to work. So we tend to do our work while they're napping. The little ones, they nap in the middle of the day, so we do a lot of work then, and then we do most of our work in the evening. And they do like 2 days of nursery a week, so we get 2 full days of work as well. And then, to be honest, usually at the weekends we're still working. So the work is a lot, but I mean, we are growing a business, so there's a lot to do. I don't feel like at the moment I can really have much let up, but at the same time I do always prioritize, and I'm very good at being selfish when it comes to my own health and my own enjoyment. Like, I'm grumpy if I don't put myself first. Like, I am like not a nice mum if I don't like put my health first. So I've always been involved in sport since I was little. So whether it's been football, tennis, me and my husband used to do triathlons together. We met when we were boxing. So we've trained boxing and Muay Thai together. So there's kind of a massive array of sports that we kind of do and we want to do as a family and get the kids involved. So so trying to integrate all those things, and also, like Sian said as well, get the kids involved and get the kids watching so that it becomes part of their life to see mum and dad are active and they're fit and they're putting their health first. And you know, Omar, my husband, he does press ups on the floor just randomly around the house, and the kids will see it and they'll copy him, and it's great. I wish I could do press ups around the house, but I can manage like 2. So I find it, my husband is very, very supportive of me having me time, which is really important. And he knows that I'm a better person with it. So he makes that time for me to be able to go off and do my thing. I make time for him to be able to go off and go to the gym. So yeah, so important. I think on the flip side to Sian, I typically deal with pressure really, really well. Like at uni, I'd always be like writing my dissertation or essays or whatever the night before deadline day. But then as I've got older, I think with the added pressure of kids and business and whatever else, I don't cope as well with pressure anymore. So I'm now needing to like adapt and make sure that I plan into my schedule. Like if there's a deadline, I don't obviously do it the night before, because that's ridiculous. I'm a publisher. I can't get away with that anymore. Like, I need to grow up a little bit in that respect. So I think you mentioned about like hormones and things that you can that as you get older, it does come into play. Hormones are a massive thing, and they change the way that you have to hold yourself and react to things, and the way that you need to reschedule stuff and plan your life. So yeah, I think it's getting a nice balance of putting everything in and making sure that your mental health is as optimum as it can be.
Did you ask me to unmute, Tuls? Was I not muted? Was I muted?
Yeah, you started talking, and then instead of me saying, Kelly, you're on mute, I just
It
asked
came
to
up.
unmute you. I
Okay.
asked to unmute you.
All right. Can you edit that bit out?
I will.
Okay, cool. All right. So here's a question for both of you again. How have you cultivated a network of support both personally and professionally to navigate the challenges of entrepreneurship?
So I sought out networking groups that were for women in business because I just wanted to surround myself with women, to be perfectly honest. And I just think that when you go to those events, the conversation does naturally gravitate towards the difficulties that women in business face, whether you're a woman with a partner, whether you're a woman with or without children. We all have those shared experiences. And I've made some really good friends. And I think that's when I went to the first few networking, I was all about who's going to be my client here. And I was trying to like spot them out. But that's not what networking is about. It's actually more about having that support around you. Because I feel like when you talk about the problems that you're having and you realize other people are having those problems too, it does just make you feel a whole lot better. And sometimes they don't have a solution to your issue, and sometimes they do, and they might say, I've read this book, or have you tried this podcast, or someone even told me about some free business coaching that I could apply for. So I think all that kind of thing makes a difference. In my household, I'm surrounded by males. I've got a husband and 2 boys, but we're a feminist household, and all the boys in my family know that. But it's been tricky, I would say, regarding the family side, because like I said, I've only launched my business 18 months ago. And before that, from the moment that I had my first child up until 18 months ago, I went back to work part-time, and it was 3 days a week. So I always had these solid whole days off where I could do things around the house. I was a bit more flexible to drop off forgotten PE kit and that kind of thing. And I'm not quite as available now. So we are still like working that out together, but I do have a lot of support at home. And then, like I said, I've sought out that I met Tulsi at a networking for women in sport, and that was something that I'm passionate about and I wanted to do. So I went out and found that for myself.
Becky, what about you? How are you finding the support with, your own business with your partner?
Yeah, very similar, really. Just I also think that social media is a really good place to find a lot of support and a lot of contacts and people. I mean, I met both of you guys on social media, and I think right at the beginning of my journey, when you're kind of setting up a business, you're told, right, you must go and network on social media. It's good for your accounts. It's good for the algorithm. It's good for all these things. And I was really viewing it as a really mechanical kind of business builder, and I was like, okay, fine. But then once you kind of get into it a little bit, and then you forget that that's something that you've been told to do about the algorithms and whatever, and you're like, oh, actually, this is quite a nice way to be on social media, and actually, I'm using it to find support for myself, to find like really, really useful people and really interesting people and really supportive people that are in the same industry as me, and that who actually I could become friends with, because we have such similar kind of mindsets, and we're all kind of women entrepreneurs. And so it kind of turned from this task on this chore that I thought I had to do to become successful on social media to, oh, this is actually really nice and really beneficial for me. So now I don't see it as like a chore anymore. It's just something natural that you do on social media. Like, you connect with people, you're supportive to other people, you offer advice to other people if they ask for it, and it's just a nice way to be. So yeah, definitely. And Facebook, I think, has also been a really, really good platform for me to kind of reach out and meet other people. And so yeah, social media can be a nice place to be.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, Becky. So thank you, because for those of you, before we round up, actually, I've got one final question, but all of the links to Sian and Becky's businesses, websites, social media, they all are going to be in the description box. So please go follow them, like what they're doing, subscribe, go to their newsletters. Just if you're a prospective author, or even if you're not even thinking about writing a book, follow them, because the information that they send out is just invaluable. Kelly, you're going to love all these little things that Sian does, and Becky, same when you've got the podcast coming out. There's little tidbits that you can learn along the way. But my final question to the both of you, again, Becky, I'm going to start with you, is what is the most rewarding part of your roles? Like, I always find that if you've got habits in place, you don't need to rely on motivation, because motivation is fleeting. But what really does kind of put the icing on the cake, the cherry on top for you when you are in your business?
So I think I really love to be able to be that helpful person and like basically have somebody who can't live without me. So like I make their life so much easier that they're like, oh my God, where was I without you? And like I used to be a PA like in my past life. I've done all sorts of careers. That's a whole other story. But so as a PA, I loved that feeling of like my director would be like, oh my God, you sorted my flight out and this and that, and where would I be without you? And I'd be like, I know, well, I'm so great. So I think that kind of aspect definitely comes into it, where I am that go-to person that is helping somebody to, whether it's to fully publish their book and can take like complete control of it and work with that person to get their book published, or whether it's like Tulshi, where you came to me just for formatting and I was able to take that aspect off your hands, do that for you, send it back to you, and you were like, thank you so much. Like that for me is just so rewarding that I can be that person for somebody.
That's amazing. Yeah, you were invaluable. Sian, what about you?
She
What's
told
the
me.
best thing?
It was something completely unexpected. So I knew that I would be good at the editing and the proofreading part, but I never thought I would become this book or person cheerleader. So I love seeing someone going from having all those self-doubts of, first of all, is my book any good? Anybody want to read it? Is it ready for publishing? And then I get them to that finish line where they're excited to publish it. And it's just restoring and channeling that self-belief that they were missing at the start. And I didn't think that would be an aspect of being a book editor. I thought it would be all about just the physical manuscripts and I would just be glued to the laptop on using Word. But actually I love the handover calls and I love the one-to-one that I get to have with my authors, and that was completely unexpected.
That's the thing, you get so involved in the journey of the author, and for you obviously just one part of the journey, but then you also get kind of sucked into the rest of the journey. So you find, I guess you probably would find yourself being so interested in like, when's the book launch, like I can't wait to see it, and then share it everywhere, and you just get so sucked into the author's journey, you just become part of it, and then you want them so badly to succeed, you're like, come on.
Yeah, I just want to like be like, everyone read this book, not just because I edited it, because it's actually turned out to be really, really, really good. And you just want to like help them with their book marketing. And you have to remember that, you know, you've only got so much time, and I hate it. The bit I know you didn't ask this, Tulsi, but the bit I don't like about my role is when I have to be like, I really have to stop working on this book now because I've got to work on the next one. And it's really hard sort of like coming up with that kind of, well, I'm always here to help with the little bits that come after, but actually I need to move on to the next person now. That's actually really hard to do.
I mean, I think you've just explained it's going to be really hard to say goodbye, because like there's still so many questions that I want to grill both of you on, and it's really exciting to hear about what your journey is and where you guys are going. We haven't even touched on that either. And for me, usually it's about, oh, Sian, how can you help me with this little grammar thing? And Becky, how can you help me with this formatting? And now I'm like, I'm loving the journey that you've given us, you know, the opportunity to spend your time on this podcast to give us the wealth of experience and honestly the wisdom and the insights. People, you've got to go follow these individual amazing people. But yes, all the links on the websites are in the links box below. And if you like this podcast, make sure you share it with your friends. But thank you so much, Sian. Thank you so much, Becky, for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. That was my first ever podcast. So I'm really glad that it was with you and somebody that I knew well. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Okay, so once we've heard from Sian and Becky, this was amazing.
Yeah.
I hope you guys got so much insight from them. I know I did. What about you, Cal?
Oh, absolutely. They are brilliant people to listen to
Yeah,
and put a new perspective on so many things too, actually. Yeah, you have to hear it. Have to listen.
agree.
Have to-
So,
yeah.
health motivational tip of the day. Before we round up our podcast, what is your health motivational tip of the day, Kelly?
This has happened to me 15 minutes before the podcast was about to start. Okay, half an hour before the podcast was about to start, I just finished work. 15 minutes beforehand, I was going to go have a shower and then log on. And at 15 minutes to the podcast starting, I opened up the front door to say Linda going out to her caravan, and the cat went meow. And where we live, cats are not allowed to be outdoors after 6 p.m. So I was running around the lawn with no shoes on, trying to catch the cat, but I was grounding. And it felt so good. So get out there. I know you all know about it. Just get out there and do it, because we forget about it. We put shoes on. There's snakes around here. You should, yeah.
Oh yeah, that's true. You've got all sorts of insects and like
we got all the
reptiles
things. All
and
the things.
all of these
Yeah, I
things
don't
in
love them,
Australia.
but yeah, they're around. Yeah. But ground yourself.
Agree. My
It's
health
been a while since
motivational
I
tip
did
of
it.
the day will be go to my YouTube, Tulshi.coach, because there is a
Yes.
free 30-day meditation and it is on a unique playlist. So head over to the playlist section and marry that grounding in with a 5-minute breath work or 5-minute mindfulness session. Because if you've come through Christmas and now you're in this new year and you're thinking, okay, things have been busy, you're wanting to ground yourself, how do you end up doing that? Well, take one step at a time. As we said with Kelly's recommended health motivational tip on the last podcast, that you just need to take one step, and that's what I'm offering right now. So head over to that YouTube channel. But guys, Kelly,
Yes.
you've been amazing. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. If you found this podcast useful, please comment below if you're watching this on YouTube and share it with your friends and family members. We are still trying to grow this channel, so we would appreciate the span of where this can go. Also, we would love for you to be a part of our Patreon community. Head over to the description box where you can find all the links from Sian, from Becky, from old podcasts, and Patreon. So hit subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. Click the notification bell so you don't miss out on new podcasts. And I hope you enjoyed this one. We'll see you on the next one. Bye, Cal.
Thank you. Bye.